The US Open is supposed to be golf's ultimate test. The toughest fairways, the toughest rough, the toughest mental battle in the sport. So why is everyone arguing about the rules instead of the golf? First, the PGA Tour quietly changed one of its most controversial rules, and players are already divided. Preferred lies used to give you a full club length of relief. Now, you get the length of a scorecard. That's it. Viktor Hovland called for this change. Michael Kim loves it. But the play it as it lies crowd, they're still not happy. Then came the bombshell about field sizes. The PGA Tour is cutting the number of fully exempt players from 125 to just 100. Kevin Kisner says some players you will never hear from again because the tour is becoming a closed shop. Brandel Chamblee slammed the decision, calling it a mistake, and if that wasn't enough, the USGA announced a major playoff format change for the US Open, moving away from the historic 18-hole playoff to a 2-hole aggregate, the last of the 4 majors to make the switch. Now, with Shinnecock Hills just weeks away, the golf world is asking one question: what is the PGA Tour doing? And is any of this actually making the game better? Welcome to Golf Untold. Today, we're breaking down every controversial rule change, every heated debate, and what it all means for the future of professional golf. Let me start with the rule change that has purists furious and players surprisingly divided. Preferred lies, also known as lift, clean, and place, also known to critics as lift, clean, and cheat. Here's what changed. When wet conditions make fairways muddy and unpredictable, the PGA Tour allows players to move their ball to get a clean lie. In the past, that relief area was 1 full club length. That's roughly 48 inches of freedom. A player could significantly improve their angle to the pin, avoid a bad lie, and essentially give themselves a massive advantage. Now, the relief area has been reduced to the length of a standard PGA Tour scorecard. That's about 12 inches, 1 foot, not nearly enough to change your angle dramatically, but just enough to get your ball out of a mud puddle. PGA Tour winner Michael Kim was the first to break the news on social media, and he didn't hold back his enthusiasm. Great new rule change to the PGA Tour Lift Clean in Place rule. Instead of a full club length relief, it's only scorecard relief. Experienced it during DP World Tour and thought it was much better. A full club length can really change the angle of a chip shot sometimes. Viktor Hovland had been calling for exactly this change. At the 2025 Ryder Cup, when preferred lies were in effect, Hovland pointed out the inconsistency. Usually, in Europe, we have a scorecard. In the US, we have a club length. I think that can maybe influence how we play a little too much, especially around the greens and then in terms of angles and stuff. The PGA Tour listened. And now here we are. But not everyone is celebrating. The play it as it lies crowd, the purists who believe golf should be brutal and unforgiving, still aren't happy. To them, any preferred lies rule is an admission that the game has gone soft. And reducing the relief area from 48 inches to 12 inches, that's like putting a slightly smaller bandage on a wound that shouldn't exist in the first place. Here's the question that nobody seems to be asking. If the conditions are so bad that players need relief, why are they playing at all? The PGA Tour's willingness to invoke this rule has been called generous by critics. And this change, while meaningful, doesn't address the root problem. Still, for players who have been asking for this adjustment, it's a victory. A small one, but a victory nonetheless. And as the US Open approaches, every player in the field will be watching to see how the USGA handles similar situations, because the USGA is not the PGA Tour, and their rules are their own. Now let me tell you about the change that has traditionalists reaching for their pitchforks, the US Open playoff format. For 117 years, if the US Open ended in a tie, players went back out for 18 more holes. Sudden death? No. A full round. A marathon, a test of endurance that separated the legends from the lucky. Not anymore. The USGA announced that the US Open is changing to a 2-hole aggregate playoff. That means if players are tied after 72 holes, they'll play 2 holes. The lowest aggregate score over those 2 holes wins. If they're still tied, then they go to sudden death. Here's what makes this so significant. The U.S. Open was the last of the 4 majors to abandon the 18-hole playoff. The Masters switched to sudden death in 1976. The PGA Championship followed in 1977. The Open Championship switched to a 4-hole playoff in 1985 and then to a 2-hole aggregate in 2019. The U.S. Open held out the longest, until now. The USGA also decided to make the same change for its other Open championships, the U.S. Women's Open, the U.S. Senior Open, and the U.S. Senior Women's Open. All of them. 2-hole playoffs across the board. I understand why they did it. Television doesn't want to come back on Monday. Sponsors don't want to pay for an extra day. Players don't want to wait around. The world has changed, and the USGA finally decided to change with it. But let me tell you what we lost. The 18-hole playoff was brutal. It was fair. It tested every part of a player's game over a full round of golf. The 2008 U.S. Open between Tiger Woods and Rocco Mediate went to a Monday playoff. Tiger won on the 19th hole, the first sudden death hole after the 18-hole playoff ended in a tie. That drama, that history, that moment, it wouldn't exist under the new format. The new 2-hole aggregate is exciting. It's dramatic. It's television-friendly. But is it the same? No. And that's why traditionalists are furious. The change takes effect immediately and will be used at Shinnecock Hills in June if there's a tie after 72 holes. For the first time in over a century, the U.S. Open will crown its champion in a sprint, not a marathon. Only time will tell if that's progress or a mistake. While the USGA was changing playoff formats, the PGA Tour was quietly reshaping the entire competitive landscape, and the consequences could be devastating for dozens of players. Starting in 2026, the number of fully exempt PGA Tour cards has been cut from 125 to just 100. That's 25 players who would have kept their jobs last year who will now be scrambling for partial status, conditional starts, or a trip back to Q school. Kevin Kisner, a 4-time PGA Tour winner, saw this coming, and he didn't mince words. It will be a crazy day to watch the RSM Classic and the 125 on the Seals on FedEx Cup tracker. There will be guys that lose their playing privileges today that you will never hear from again because of how much of a closed shop PGA Tour is becoming. Think about that. A PGA Tour winner, a man who has made millions and hoisted trophies, is saying the tour is becoming a closed shop. The path to the top is narrowing, and the players who don't make the cut, they disappear. You never hear from them again. Kisner clarified that his comments weren't about his own situation. He finished the season in 196th place, well below the threshold. He said he literally could care less what direction they want to go. His concern was for the others, the players on the bubble, the ones whose careers hang in the balance every season. Here's how the new structure works. Players ranked 101 to 110 will receive limited playing privileges, maybe 15 to 20 events. Players ranked 111 to 125 get even fewer starts. Players ranked 126 to 156 get barely enough starts to keep their dreams alive. And below that, Q school or nothing. Brandel Chamblee, never one to stay silent, slammed the decision on his podcast. I think they're just reducing the number of spots because it's convenient to do so, because the best players in the world have all the power right now, and that's the way they like it. Chamblee pointed out something that should trouble every golf fan. One of the great things about the game of golf is there is a very fine line between the best and the rest. There's about a 3% difference between Scottie Scheffler and the average tour player, and about a 7% difference between Scottie Scheffler and the worst tour player. Think about that. The gap between the best player in the world and the worst player on tour is 7%. 7%. And yet the PGA Tour is making it harder for that worst player to keep his job. The pipeline, as Chamblee calls it, is narrowing. And that pipeline has always been the lifeblood of the tour. I think they are cutting their nose off to spite their face, and I don't agree with it at all, Chamblee concluded. He's not alone. As the 2026 season unfolds, we're going to find out exactly what the PGA Tour has sacrificed in the name of exclusivity. Before we get to the other rule changes, I need to tell you about a moment from early 2026 that perfectly captures why golf fans are so frustrated with the current state of the rules. Jordan Spieth. A boulder. Some ants. And a free drop that had social media on fire. Here's what happened at the Valero Texas Open. Spieth's ball came to rest beneath a large boulder. His longtime caddy, Michael Greller, helped lift the boulder so Spieth could take his shot. The PGA Tour posted the clip with a sarcastic caption. Michael Greller's job description: caddy other duties as assistant lifting boulders. The boulder wasn't the issue. Everyone agreed that was a loose impediment. Greller could move it. The controversy came next. Officials spotted an ant on Spieth's ball. They determined the presence of an ant bed qualified as an abnormal course condition under Rule 16.1, and that gave Spieth a free drop. The backlash was immediate and brutal. One fan didn't hold back. Ridiculous that he got a free drop from this. Another wrote, rules official bottled it, should have told him to get lost. A third summed up the frustration perfectly. Great lesson, so now when my ball is under a boulder, just say I saw ants and get relief. The sarcasm cut deep because it exposed something uncomfortable. The rules were followed to the letter. But did they follow the spirit of the game? That's the question that kept coming up. One fan made a comparison that hit home. So you get a free drop from an ant bed in the rough, but no relief from a divot someone ahead of you made in the fairway. Please change the divot rule. That's the tension at the heart of golf's rules debate. Some things that seem unfair are technically allowed. Other things that seem unfair are technically not, and nobody can explain why. The ant ruling followed established precedent. Tiger Woods got a similar ruling at the 1999 Phoenix Open, when a boulder was deemed a loose impediment and spectators helped move it. But just because it's been done before doesn't mean fans have to like it. This incident is a microcosm of everything wrong with golf's relationship with its own rules. The book is too thick. The interpretations are too creative. And fans are tired of watching players find loopholes instead of playing the game. Not every rule change is controversial. In fact, some of the updates the PGA Tour made for 2026 are so sensible that you'll wonder why they weren't already in place. Let me walk you through them. First, embedded ball relief. Under the old rule, you could only get relief if your ball embedded in its own pitch mark. Under the new rule, you get relief from any unrepaired pitch mark in the fairway or shorter grass. Think about that. You stripe one down the middle, and your ball plugs into some inconsiderate player's pitch mark from 3 groups ago. Old rule? Tough luck. New rule? You're covered. Finally? Second, the "oops, I didn't know" penalty got softer. If you unknowingly move your ball and play from the wrong spot, you used to get 2 penalty strokes. Now, it's just 1. The key word is unknowingly. The tour is acknowledging that honest mistakes happen and shouldn't destroy your entire round. Third, more relief around the green. Players already got line-of-play relief from immovable obstructions within 2 club lengths of the green. Now that extends to holes or ground under repair left behind when those obstructions are removed, as long as everything is in fairway-height grass or shorter. Translation: if there's a gnarly patch where they pulled up a sprinkler head, you're covered. Fourth, you can now fix your broken club. If your club breaks or gets significantly damaged during a round, you can swap out components you're carrying. Cracked driver face? Pop on the backup head you got in the bag. For most of us, that's irrelevant. We don't carry spare club heads. But for tour pros, this could be a legitimate game saver. Then there's the rangefinder drama. After experimenting with distance measuring devices at the RBC Heritage and Zurich Classic, the PGA Tour decided, nope, not for us. But here's the twist. They're fine on PGA Tour Champions, the Korn Ferry Tour, and PGA Tour Americas. So once you turn 50 or you're grinding your way up through the ranks, you can use technology. But if you're on the big tour, back to the yardage book, pal. The logic here is inconsistent at best. The tour seems to be saying elite players should rely on their caddies and course knowledge, which is fair enough. But it creates a weird two-tier system where the path to the top involves using technology that you'll have to abandon once you arrive. Most of these changes fall into the minor tweaks that make the game slightly more fair category. They admit that golf is played by humans, on imperfect courses, and sometimes stuff happens that shouldn't completely ruin your day. That's refreshing. The scorecard thing? Still weird, but refreshing nonetheless. So here we are, June 2026, Shinnecock Hills, the 126th U.S. Open, and the golf world is more divided than ever about the rules that will govern the game's biggest stage. The scorecard rule will be in effect if conditions get wet. The two-hole playoff format is official, no more Monday marathons. The field size is smaller than ever with only 100 players holding full status. And every ruling official at Shinnecock knows that fans are watching their every move after the Spieth Ant controversy. The USGA accepted 10,201 entries for this year's Open, just one shy of the record set last year. The youngest entrant is 13-year-old Nico Amaritis. The oldest is 71-year-old Mike Caporale. That's the beauty of the U.S. Open. Anyone with a 0.4 handicap or better can dream of playing Shinnecock. The qualifying process is still pure. The path to the championship is still open, but the path to the PGA Tour, that's getting narrower. Kevin Kisner warned us. Brandel Chamblee warned us. And as we watch the best players in the world battle at Shinnecock, we have to ask ourselves, how many of the players in that field won't be on tour next year? How many dreams are about to end because the PGA Tour decided 125 was too many? The rule changes themselves are a mixed bag. The scorecard relief is a meaningful improvement. The embedded ball rule is common sense. The two-hole playoff is a necessary concession to television. But the field size reduction? The rangefinder inconsistency? The lingering questions about what constitutes an abnormal course condition. Those are problems that aren't going away. The U.S. Open is supposed to be the ultimate test, the toughest conditions, the most demanding course, the most unforgiving setup in professional golf. And for 4 days in June, that's exactly what Shinnecock Hills will deliver. But underneath the drama of birdies and bogeys, there's a bigger question that the USGA and the PGA Tour seem unwilling to answer. Are they making the game better, or are they just making it different? When the champion hoists the trophy on Sunday evening, nobody will be talking about the scorecard rule or the playoff format. They'll be talking about the putt that dropped, the shot that defied logic, the moment that defined a career. That's the magic of golf. The rules fade into the background. The players take center stage. But for the rest of us, the fans, the analysts, the dreamers, the debate will continue. Because the rules of golf aren't just words on a page. They're the framework of the game we love. And when that framework starts changing faster than anyone can keep up, we have every right to ask, what is the PGA Tour doing? The answer, I suspect, is that they're figuring it out as they go. Just like the rest of us. Was the scorecard rule change a victory for fairness or just a smaller bandage on a broken system? Is the two-hole playoff progress or the death of a historic tradition? And when Jordan Spieth gets a free drop because of an ant, is that the rules working as intended or the rules making the game look ridiculous? The debate isn't over. It's just getting started. And with Shinnecock Hills on the horizon, every player in the field knows that one bad ruling, one controversial decision, could change everything. Welcome to the new era of professional golf. Buckle up. It's going to be a bumpy ride.